Budge the Brave, a squirrel's tale of hard work and courage in a big, cozy hollow tree deep in the forest lived the squirrel family: Daddy Squirrel, Mommy Squirrel, their daughter Betty, and their son Budge. Their tree was the most beautiful in the forest, with thick, sturdy branches and a grand view of the changing seasons. The squirrels were a happy family, and Betty and Budge spent their days chasing each other through the branches, playing hide-and-seek in the rustling leaves, and nibbling on acorns. They lived in blissful joy, with no worries at all. But out of everything they loved, playing with their squirrel cousins was what made them happiest. All summer long, the squirrel cousins would race through the treetops, play tag, and challenge each other to daring leaps from branch to branch. Life was all fun and games. However, something strange began to happen as the air turned cooler. The once lush green leaves started changing colors, first to bright yellows, then oranges, fiery reds, and finally deep browns and golds. Budge looked around in surprise. "What is happening?" he wondered as he checked to see if Betty's tail had also changed color. It was as if the entire world was changing before his eyes. One day, nuts began to rain down from the trees, and it wasn't long before Daddy and Mommy Squirrel grew very busy. They worked tirelessly, gathering as many nuts as they could for the long, cold winter ahead. "We have to stock up," said Daddy Squirrel one chilly morning. "Once the snow falls, there will be nothing left to eat, and we'll need enough food to last us until spring." Mommy Squirrel nodded. "With 4 hungry mouths, we have to make sure we collect plenty." Budge and Betty watched as their parents scurried about, filling their nests with acorns, nuts, and seeds. Betty, always the diligent and hardworking one, decided to help her parents right away. But Budge, oh, Budge. He wasn't used to hard work. He loved to play and wasn't sure he could spend an entire day collecting nuts. "I'll help," he said, though not very enthusiastically. So, off they went into the forest, gathering nuts for the winter. Betty worked swiftly, scampering up and down the tree, filling her cheeks with nuts and storing them in their dray. But poor Budge. After only a short while, he grew tired, his legs felt heavy, and he decided to lie down for a nap. The next day was even colder, and dark clouds gathered in the sky. "We have to hurry," said Daddy Squirrel. "If we work hard all day, we'll have enough food to last the whole winter." Betty and her parents got to work, collecting nuts at a frantic pace. But as they worked, they realized that Budge was nowhere to be seen. Budge, who had been distracted by some squirrels playing games nearby, had snuck off to join them. "Just one game of tag," he thought, "then I'll get back to work." But one game turned into another, and before Budge knew it, the day had slipped away. On his way back home, Budge made a terrible mistake. He stepped right into a trap. 2 boys had set the trap, hoping to catch a squirrel to keep as a pet. Poor Budge was terrified. "Why didn't I just stay with my family and help them collect nuts?" he thought. The boys scooped him up and carried him off to their small, dark house. It was a strange place, with no trees in sight. Budge had never felt so far from home. "I can't live here," he thought as he trembled in their hands. The boys placed him inside a cardboard box for the night, planning to figure out what to do with him in the morning. Inside the dark box, Budge felt more frightened and alone than ever. He missed the warmth of his home, the rustle of the leaves, and the laughter of his family. He closed his eyes tightly and wished he were back with them. But Budge was not one to give up easily. After a few moments, he gathered his courage. "I need to escape," he thought. With his sharp little teeth, Budge began to gnaw at the box. Slowly but surely, he chewed a tiny hole, then another, and soon the hole was big enough for him to wriggle through. Budge ran through the cold, snowy night, the wind whipping around him. His heart pounded as he hurried toward home, but a small voice inside his head whispered, "What if they're angry? I didn't help collect any nuts. I've been lazy, and now they won't have enough food. Maybe they don't want me back." For a moment, Budge stopped in his tracks. Should he turn back? Should he run away and hide? But then he remembered the warmth of his family and the love they had always shown him. "No," Budge said to himself, "I'll be brave and go home. I'll make it up to them." And so, with renewed determination, he raced back to his beloved tree. When Budge finally arrived home, the sun was just beginning to rise. He hesitated for a moment, then peeked inside the hollow tree. There, gathered around the table, were Daddy, Mommy, and Betty having breakfast. As soon as they saw Budge, their faces lit up with joy. "Budge," they cried, rushing to him. "You're safe." Budge, overwhelmed with relief, told them everything: the trap, the boys, the escape. "I'm so sorry I didn't help," he said, his voice full of regret. "I've learned my lesson. I promise I'll never be lazy again." His family hugged him tightly. "We're just glad you're back," said Mommy Squirrel. "We missed you so much." That day, they celebrated Budge's return with a feast. The neighbors came over, and there was laughter and joy in the air. From that day on, Budge worked harder than anyone else. He spent every fall gathering nuts for the winter, making sure his family would always have enough. So, if you ever see a squirrel working busily in the autumn, running up and down trees, collecting nuts with boundless energy, it's probably Budge. Because Budge learned that hard work, love, and family are the most important things of all.